Hello. Hi.
Hey, Nat and Michael and Kirk.
Hello.
Katie
Yay.
Hello.
Hey,
Hello.
and Katie.
Hi,
Yay.
Heather.
Hiya. Hi,
So,
Neil.
so
Hello.
happy,
Hi,
so happy
Kirk.
to be here. So happy.
It's great. It's great.
Ah, great.
Liz, have we met before? No. No, I didn't think so. And lots of people I don't think I met. Oh, I have met Christy
Tom and
before. I met.
Sue. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. All these people. Fantastic. Okay. Um,
New faces.
yeah, it's great. It's great. Uh, so should we crack on, as we would say here? Uh, we've got what 20 minutes 25 minutes or something to talk about this, and I want to I have to tell you I'm a bit mystified by this report, because one of the things that's happened is it's really got under my skin. As I reflected on what I had done and the stories that had emerged, I was thinking that I couldn't do my job anymore, um, because I had a title of director of learning and culture, and it was a strategic role within the organization, and it just didn't have much contact with people. So it was really hard. We were supposed to be thinking great and lofty strategic thoughts, but without having spoken to people to be informed by what they were thinking and doing and how it was for them, I think it was really hard to do good strategy. But that was okay. I was kind of struggling with that. And then I had the experience of writing the report, and my heart was moved by it. There was something about sitting, listening to people, and trying to wring every last drop of meaning out of their story, and to find a way to not just amplify what people were saying, fine to make their voices louder, but I also wanted to find a way to elevate and enhance it. Not because I thought there was anything wrong with what people were saying, but
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that it would be possible for it to write about this beautifully, or in a kind of somewhat mysterious way or a whimsical way that would just get people over the hurdle, get them really into someone's life. So that was my task. And if you read the report and you read the stories, you'll see that you might think it's much ado about nothing, but I'll leave that to you to think about. So Dave, can we get the first slide up, please? So you've seen it, the title, and as I say, it was quite intentional to try and make it look beautiful. Make it something that people wanted to have in their hand to read, or to at least be a bit curious about, and because it felt like the stories deserved it, and so I was. It was great to work with Julie. She has a real sensibility for this work that we do, and how to get on with it. Can we move on to the next slide, Dave? Thanks.
Yeah, just a second, Heather. Sorry,
No worries.
I'm having a
Mhm.
minor problem. I will get
Okay.
back to it.
That's all right. It's not me. You know, normally what happens when I have minor problems on Zoom, I start to do random clicking, and then there's just swearing, and the whole thing sweating. It all gets really ugly, and if we ever get there in the end, it's pretty blooming amazing. So
Yeah.
I'll just sort of fill the background in while Dave's there you go. So this is the quote that I read. The thing that really struck me about this quote was that this acknowledgement that in the midst of some really awful stuff, really painful stuff for individuals and families, and very challenging stuff for the people who support the people that we work for, we could acknowledge that there had been some moments that had just been our best days, when our best selves had shown up, and had done the work, and had done it with a kind of cheerful heart, and well, that so we had our best days, and there were moments when we'd noticed one another as we have seldom noticed before. um, John O'Brien picked up on this point. He was talking to I think the Nebraska network and person centered planning, and we would have said that we were an organization that was completely person centered. It's part of who we were, flowed through our blood. But one of the things I think the report has revealed, that actually we got quite complacent at times about people. Our expectations kind of flatlined for them, and we got into, there are people who've been supported by our organisation for 18 years. Some of them have worked with the same team members, and so there's a kind of casual familiarity about it all that just, when we'd stop noticing one another. And so this was an opportunity where we had to pay more attention, and we saw people as we had seldom noticed them before. And for me, that was that when I read the Relationships Project report, that was the kickoff for me. What is it that we're seeing? What are we seeing? How do we need to look differently at people, and how do we make sure that we can lock in these changes, the possibilities of this this difficult time? So it was a huge thing for me. Dave, can we move on? Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. We chose 3 themes. I think I mentioned those earlier. We decided that we would look at, on the advice of the Relationships Project, the voices that were less heard. I don't know about your experience, but in our organisation, we've got people who they're like poster kids for us. They're the people who've got maybe an extraordinary story. Something amazing has happened, and we tell it, and it shows us up in a really good light, and that's good. We should do that. We should trumpet these stories and say what we're learning. But we've got lots more people who are kind of dodging along. We don't hear much of them. We don't hear much of their teams. And so I thought, what are they thinking about all of this? What are they making of it all? So I set out quite deliberately to ask people to tell me about the wee quiet folks who don't say much about anything. I included staff in that, colleagues in that. I talked to some of our board. I talked to families, and of course I talked to the people that we work for. So we looked for the voices that were less heard, and that was really interesting to me. And one of the things that was most interesting about it was the pull towards our superstars. Oh, why don't you tell so and so's story? That should be there. That should be, But actually, the thing that was really fascinating, and I think was giving us more insight to who we were and how we were operating, was listening to the wee quiet voices. Do you know what, Dave? I didn't take a note of the time when we started this. Have you got any notion of where the time?
We have 20 minutes still.
Right, so we're still at 20 minutes. And I just wondered if it might be useful to hear another story at this point. Okay. There's, don't worry, I won't read you all of them. I think that you might as well know what and who I'm talking about. I want to tell you a story of a young woman that who works for us, a colleague. She's a support person, and I went to interview her, and I must admit, when I was talking to her, I was kind of despairing, because I was thinking, there's nothing. What am I going to write about here? How am I going to take this, just really very ordinary piece of work and elevate it and enhance it? But let me read Amy's story here. If you ever wanted someone to rely on, Amy's the woman for you. When you meet her, you just know that she'll do what she says she'll do. She won't be late. She won't let you down. She won't mess you about. You can trust Amy. Over the 3 years that she's worked as part of Ross's team, she's proven her worth. A collaborator with Ross and his family. A go-between with the other team members. That's Amy. She talks enthusiastically about how everything was done. Everything was about Ross. How the team explained things as they went along. They drove past favourite restaurants to help him understand that they were closed. They tried arts and crafts and word searches and films. Whatever it took for Ross to be happy. Amy admitted that it sometimes felt like they were making progress. And then it would be 1 step forward and 2 steps back. In fact, a good couple back. But when I spoke with her, she talked about the need to value the small things, to be clear about the detail. She said that she's learned not to take anything for granted, that things can change quickly, and so can people. I asked Amy what she's going to take away from this lockdown experience. She thought about it long and hard, and then she lifted up her chin and she said, when the country's been at a standstill, I've been there. I did that. I'm proud. And it seemed to me that in a time when, certainly in this country, the people who do the work that we do are being berated as not being skilled, and not very qualified, not really being worth very much. They absolutely, demonstrated that they were worth their weight in gold. Because, and when I started thinking about what they were doing, they just kept walking into the fire. The rest of us were sat off in our offices and working remotely, and they were getting out there on the bus doing whatever they needed to do. So they were. So that's Amy's story. She was proud, and I think that was justifiably so. And so Amy's story really challenged me, because I thought, what am I talking about? This isn't much of a story here. What? And I started to look for something different in the stories. And I don't know that I can explain that to you yet. And actually, that would be one of the values of the workshop, would be to try with people to think about, what is it that's different here? What is it that I'm not seeing about these stories? How can I be more articulate about what I'm doing? I'd really like some help in understanding that. We looked for relationships, and we were looking to see how relationships were. And that was absolutely fascinating. Almost every person that I spoke to, the team around about them said, "Oh no, we thought it was going to be a disaster. We just never, we didn't think they'd cope. We just didn't think they'd cope at all. They wouldn't get through it." And then, blow me, the person did. The person exceeded everyone's expectations. They understood the limitations. They stuck with the rules. They did what needed to be done, and they absolutely stepped up to the plate and worked. And took it in the chin. So it started to make me think about what the chronic low expectations that we have of people that we work for, that we don't expect that they'll be able to stand up and do anything, that the rest of us somehow can kind of gather our mettle and get on with it. So I was struck by that. I was thinking about low expectations. They'll never cope. We need to put stuff in place. And then people's total amazement when folks more than coped, actually, when they triumphed. I'm fascinated too. There's a couple of questions that I don't have answers for yet. In fact, there are loads of questions I don't have answers for yet. But one thing that I heard was that at a time when everyone was struggling with their weight, everyone's talking about how much weight they put on over the pandemic, and all that kind of thing. Everyone's going on a diet and thinking about exercising. I think out of the half a dozen, 8 people who had the label of learning disability that I spoke to, 4 of them had actually lost weight during the pandemic. And everyone talked about healthy eating, and you heard me talk about Jade's adventures with a crock pot, with the slow cooker. And I'm fascinated by that, about how it is that group of people managed to lose weight when no one else has. And it made me start thinking about power and control in relationships. About who's calling the shots about this, who's saying you need to eat healthily, and who's making it happen, and how was all of that being negotiated. And I saw it in lots of other different little ways. I was thinking, what is the power imbalance in this relationship? What is there something here that needs to be explored a bit? Is something that it's worth thinking some more about? And so I just wanted to sort of check that out. And then in terms of learning for the future, one of the themes that emerged was that while we're all zooming away to our heart's content and we're conducting all of our business like that, there are actually a large percentage of people who are digitally excluded. They can't afford the technology. They can't afford to pay for the internet. They don't know how it works. We have an organisation that's affiliated to Sea Change. It's called Dates and Mates, and it's exactly what it says, a dating and friendship agency, and they run all sorts of groups and activities and so on for people. And they discovered that in lockdown, so all the things that they used to do, which were meeting in pubs, having big parties, doing this, that, and the next thing, they couldn't do that anymore. So they tried to do the same but differently. They tried to do it online, and that was great, but they realised it was just a small number of people who were engaging in the online activities. So they conducted a telephone survey, and they discovered that 25% of their membership did not have any access to anything digital. They didn't have laptops, or they couldn't afford the internet. They just plain didn't know how to do the technology, how to do Zoom and so on. And they didn't have staff who were helping them with that. You know, a lot of the people who are members of Dates and Mates are not supported during the day. And so they had nowhere to go to get access to the kind of benefits of the technology that the rest of us have experienced. So that made them think, and it made me think, because I thought, I can't believe that we're still, you know, well, of course I can believe that we're still in this old question of exclusion, and that we're finding now that here's another way that we can disadvantage a community, and it won't just be the learning disabled community. There'll be poor people, there'll be people from various groups who will not be able to do it. But this whole experience has been, you know, quite a considerable exclusion for folks, and we've kind of been. My feeling is that we've kind of got blinded to that. That we've stopped really talking about exclusion as if we've won the battle around inclusion. But actually, you just blink, and here we go. We're back in a situation where we need to be pondering it again. So, I mean, I don't know. Please use the chat. Maybe people are asking me questions and I don't know it. No, it doesn't look like they are. But I wondered if you had any thoughts about that, if you've had any experience of it, if you've seen the same level of digital exclusion or in the areas that you work in, or is that just a unique sea change thing? Scottish phenomenon. In as much as no one speaks. I can't hear you.
I'll chime in. I'll say that I can relate with the folks that that I support. Their team members are a little older, so they're not too tech savvy. So when we're trying to schedule Zooms or do Zoom medical appointments, I found that that came a big barrier for the individual they're supporting because they can't really get on in time or locate the unmute button. So there was little small boundaries that I came into part that I noticed with the elderlies with the technology part. So I can agree.
Yeah, thanks for that, because I do think that if we examine it more closely, we would see that there were people for a whole variety of reasons who were finding it difficult to get on board with this. Yeah, and I'm busy going, yeah, this is fabulous. Look, we can do this. Isn't it wonderful? We can meet internationally. But, you know, there's somebody down the road who can't get an appointment for the doctor because the doctor's just doing video conferencing, and, you know, it can't happen. You can't speak to it, you know, so we're kind of interested in that. So that's a thing that was one of several issues that I think we're, with, you know, or sea change are feeling that they have to really, you know, look at quite seriously. And for me, it seems like I quite often feel as if I've been lulled into, you know, a false sense of security about things, that, you know, because things are better than they used to be, you know, in terms of people's exclusion or presence in the community or so on, we're still not getting it right. There's still this yawning chasm between life as it's experienced by many people who are labelled, compared to life that, you know, the ordinary, typical people are experiencing. So worth thinking about. Dave, could I get the next slide?
Sure.
Please?
Yeah. Let me
How am I doing for
just
time,
get
Dave?
on here. You've got about 8 minutes.
Okay.
Let me just get it up here. Sorry.
That's no problem at all. But I thought I would just give you a bit of a sense of the kinds of stories that we were looking at, and I might say a wee bit about some more of them. So you've heard Amy's story and Jade's story. So a colleague, a person that we work for. A lesson worth learning was a story that I gathered from a colleague of mine who was having to shield during the pandemic. He had a kidney transplant, and so his health was vulnerable, and so he was required to shield. And I called him up just to, you know, I wanted to see what the experience was like. And he talked about the organisation and about how they've been really helpful. And Sea Change, I think, had been generous about the furloughing, and the you know, we've had this scheme where people would get 80% of their wages sea change made it up to 100%, so people were not financially disadvantaged by the pandemic. So Jim was he was really appreciative of that, and he kept saying, it was one of the directors of the company who had been in contact with him and negotiating all of it, and he kept saying, "Oh, it was great. She was so sincere. She was so understanding. Really appreciate that." He must have said that she was sincere and understanding about 8 times. And I started laughing. I said to him, "Jim, what were we like then before COVID? If we were so sincere and understanding, what was your experience of us prior to that?" And I thought, I didn't think for a minute I was going to open a can of worms, and I did. He said, "Well, I'll tell you what my experience was like." And he said that he felt like he was, people only ever got in touch with him when they needed something from him, when they needed him to provide, extra hours to cover for someone who was off sick or whatever. There was no kind of understanding of his situation, no thought about what that additional work might mean for his family, no thought about how difficult it was to refuse to do additional hours, and to understand that the person you worked for would be left in the lurch. He said that his manager was just completely, seemed completely unaware of that. And so this director coming along, who was sincere and understanding, was really a marked difference for him in his relationship with the organisation. And it occurred to me that it's not simply the people that we work for who might become commodities in all of this, but that our colleagues can too, that we do work that is that doesn't respond well to shifts and hours and counting. It responds to understanding. It responds to sincerity. Oh, she says we've got 3 minutes left. Oh my goodness me. So anyway, there are all of these stories there. A couple are, there's one that's called Heart, Mind and Soul, which is a bit of an analysis done by one of our board directors about really the situation. She's really making the point that individualized support for people in their own homes, one person at a time, has been, the pandemic has proven that is a much safer, more just safer way to work with people. Because I don't know how it's been for you in your country, but people were decimated here in nursing homes and in group settings. So Mo Chapman is talking about that. Can we have the next slide, Dave?
Yep.
Thanks. So these are a few of the things that I was saying. So in conclusion, but not the end of the story, here are some of the seeds that I think we need to plant, really. I think we absolutely have to expect the best of people. We've got to raise our game in terms of what we're looking for from people and our expectations of them. I think we need to trust them with the truth, because that seemed to be the thing that really made a difference. When folks were straight with people about what they could and couldn't do and what was happening and what was going on with the virus, and watch the news with them, that made a huge difference and helped people be strong and stable. I think it's really important to involve people in the adventure, to say, we're trying to work this out. What do you think? How do you think it should go? And to see this as something that has to be traversed, if you like. It's like an epic journey. So involve people in the adventure. We're saying stay awake. Already in Scotland, we're thinking about ways that we can claw back money from budgets, and there's pressure on resources. Not so much at the moment about care, but all the things that go on around about it. So cultural, recreational, sporting activities where small organisations are funded, and they provide exactly the kind of services that many of the people that we work for use. So it's like there's more than one way to starve a person. So we'll do their mind and body stuff. We'll do their body stuff. We'll keep them safe. Their basic needs will be met. But actually, what is the point of it if you can't get out there and kick a ball or put a paintbrush in your hand or meet your friends and enjoy something? If you can't have your mind and your heart fed as well. So I think we need to really stay awake in Scotland. To make sure that we don't slide into something that we wouldn't want. I think also we need to know the difference between value and cost, right? And it relates to the business about staying awake. What are the things that are valuable to people? and measure that up against the cost. Dave, could we just move really quickly on to the last slide, right? Sorry, I'm sorry this is going so fast. I do beg your pardon. I've been thinking about this. This report writing has really changed me, I think, as I said at the start. I can't do the distance stuff anymore. I realized how much I appreciated being with people, how much I appreciated the writing and the thinking and that opportunity to enhance the situation. And I came across a quote from Anne Hamilton, an artist. It was in a book by Krista Tippett. And she says, "Hearing is how we touch at a distance." Oh no, oh no. Now she's just got put a sign up right in the middle of my screen. "Hearing is how we touch at a distance. I just try to listen for what something needs to become or to find the right question." And although I spoke about it very kind of clumsily earlier on with Amy's story, what needs to become here? What's the right question to ask? And that's kind of the quest that I'm on. And I'd love to talk to people about what that might look like and what they think about it and what their view is. So there you go, a whistle stop tour of our best days. And I'm so sorry you didn't get a chance to talk. Thank you. It's all me. It's always about me. Anyone who knows me could have predicted that that would be the case. There'll be no space for anyone to do anything other than listen. I'd wanted to read another story, but I think we're going to be heading back.
We're going to